Ah, thank you for coming, everybody. Let me see. What am I doing?
You're good. I mean, oh, I don't know what you're doing now. There we go.
There we go. That's better. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's another
I like
Headless
two
Magical
bacons.
Mailbag. I wanted to throw in that little tribute to my boy Trevor Moore there. If you guys don't know about Trevor Moore, he was he was a silly motherfucker. And yeah, so he made a lot of videos like that and they killed him for it. So,
Oh,
they couldn't stand to have a guy like that sort of take the place of somebody like Alex Jones, right? Because, he's a younger dude and he had a lot more longevity and he didn't really have any sort of allegiance to any of the things that Alex Jones does. So, right around the COVID time, they popped him. And we don't know exactly why he died, and they haven't really gone into too much detail about it. But yeah, that's Trevor Moore. So if you guys don't know, look up The Whitest Kids You Know and Trevor Moore and Kitty History. That was one of the funnier ones. I thought you guys would like that one. So, what do we have for symbols tonight? Did
oh,
you have yours ready?
yeah. Let me just pull up the image real quick. I do have the Sator Square. I couldn't remember if I'd done that or not before, so I don't think so. So if I have, I'm sorry, but I do think this will be a little bit different. So than the first time, I did actually get a little bit more on it than I've seen before. All right, there it is, sir. Pulled it up for you.
All right.
So yes, we have the Sator Square. This one's a little interesting. Sator Square is an ancient Roman magic square consisting of 5 Latin words: Satyr, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas, arranged in a 5 by 5 grid. Each row and column reads the same forward and backward, forming a 2-dimensional palindrome. It dates back at least to the early 1st century AD. The oldest known example was found etched on a Pompeii column pre AD 62, which we will go back to on this whole thing right here at the end. 62. And by the Middle Ages, the Sator Square was widespread across Europe, Asia Minor, and North Africa. The 5 words in the square are Latin satyr, sower, or planter, sower, or planter. This is, supposedly. Tenet, holds. Opera, works or efforts. And rotas is wheels. And the repo, which does not occur elsewhere in Latin. Most scholars treat a repo as a proper name or coined term. The common English rendering is a repo the sower holds or guides the wheels with skill. It was like a chariot rider, maybe. For example, one authoritative source translates it roughly as a repo the sower guides the wheel with skill. Sorry. Another paraphrase is farmer Arepo works his wheels with his plow. These differ only in nuance. The square essentially depicts a farmer sower and his plow. Because opera can imply by or with effort, some read the phrase as a dative-like construction. Not exactly sure what that means. In any case, Arepo remains opaque. It may be a proper name, perhaps, or a mythical plowman, or a cryptic insertion needed to make the palindrome work. In practice, translations vary, but all revolve around the sower for satyr, tending the plow or wheels. Again, when and where it appears, the Roman period first attested in the Roman Empire. The earliest known, supposedly rotas form, was discovered in Pompeii, Italy, dated before AD 62. Additional examples of the rotas form were later found scratched on walls in Dura, Europos in Syria around 200 AD. Then the square appears in Christian context, a 6th century Greek script. Satyr is preserved on an Egyptian clay amulet, Berlin papyrus collection. And a bronze 6th century amulet from Asia Minor in Berlin shows the square alongside 2 fish and the word ICHTHUS, symbol for Christ, supposedly.
Ictus.
Yes, Ictus. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Medieval Europe, Latin satyr inscriptions abound, showing up in medieval Europe around the 8th to 15th century. They are found carved on church walls, castle facades, and monastery manuscripts. For one example, the Carolingian Bible, if I'm saying that right, from 822, and many cathedral facades in France and Italy bear the Sator Square. So remember, the oldest examples from Pompeii, buried AD 79, and other early Roman sites, confirming the formula was used by the mid-first century. Sorry. Yes, by the mid-first century. These findings predate any documented Christian community there, which has major, I guess, implications or problems for the origin theories. The early 20th century scholars tend to see a Christian origin linking the hidden Paternoster cross, but the Pompeii evidence doesn't go along with that. As one modern summary notes, the Pompeian square dated 50 to 70 AD was produced only around 40 years after the estimated death of Christ, which would make it almost like remarkably early instance for a Christian talisman, suggesting instead that the original was not likely explicitly Christian. Various origin hypotheses have been proposed. Duncan Fishweck in 1964 argued that a community of Latin-speaking Jews in late Roman Republic or early Empire devised the square. In his view, they clearly encoded the prayer Our Father, Paternoster, in the intersecting words with AO for Alpha Omega, making a hidden acrostic of the Lord's Prayer. Others have suggested pagan or magical origins. For example, the Cambridge Library notes that some theories favor Jewish, Mithraic, or even ancient Greek sources over the Christian one. Likewise, Corinium Museum researchers observed that the formula's dating and content are too early for Christianity, so it may have started as a hidden sign or wordplay long before Christians repurposed it. Connections to Mithraism or Roman religion have been floating, noting Sator could denote a sky father like Jupiter. Other scholars emphasize the possibility that it was originally just a secular or magical puzzle, a clever palindrome of letters, and only later took on religious symbolism. That's another thing. And again, real quick, what it means. Through history, the Sator Square gathered many mystical interpretations in medieval and later contexts. It was widely apotropaic, treated as a charm or incantation. For instance, medieval spellbooks and church inscriptions use it to ward off evil, sickness, or disaster. One library notes that from the 6th century onward, the Sator Square has held an important function as a magical charm used to cure sickness, avert disaster, and protect against evil spirits. Traditional folklore examples or legion in 11th to 15th century English manuscripts, it appears among childbirth charms. In Germany, it was reputed to extinguish fires. Even as late as the 19th and 20th centuries, Pennsylvania Dutch folk medicine inscribed it on their bread to feed rabies patients. These users treated the square as inherently magical, perhaps due to its unusual symmetry and the word satyr, sower, suggesting fertility and protection. On the symbolic side, many have seen cosmological or numerological meaning in the satyr's pattern and the square's patterns. Medieval Christians loved the hidden Paternoster cross, the Alpha and Omega, leftover implied God as the beginning and the end of the universe. Some modern occultists spin it further, reading Sator as a creative sower deity, or linking the 5 words or letters to mystical numbers, or five elements. But these are speculative. In antiquarian accounts, it has been tied to Mithraic or Judaic symbolism. For example, one interpretation treats the square as a mathematical equation, standing for the Jewish god. Conversely, others note that the Latin satyr was used for the chief Roman god Jupiter, making the grid a hidden pagan homage to the Heavenly Father. All such readings, numerological sums, Egyptian origins, etc., at the bottom, scholars still are kind of confused, but those are all the theories.
Wow. So there's so much to unpack from this. I think the thing that pops out the most is the N in the middle of the cross.
Let me go back.
Tenet, tenet. And so you've got that cross right there in the middle of the tenet cross. And it's like holding from both sides, right? So it's not just one thing, it's many things. And I think that Sator really gives that feel to the Heavenly Father, because all over the Bible there's sowing and reaping, sowing and reaping, sowing and reaping. So this is like the divine sower who is skillfully holding the wheel. And that could be the wheel of the plow or the wheel of time and fate,
Yeah.
so you've got a lot of implications from that.
Yeah, that
But
was
this
something
Arepo,
I read before, that they tie it to agriculture just because of like the wheel, which I do understand, but it's just like, well, the chariot isn't the chariot isn't plowing the field and it has a wheel. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's other reasons why something can have a wheel and be symbolism, but yeah, like you had said, it could be time. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do we know it's not agriculture necessarily?
well, that's the fun part of this, is that there's so many different connections that it makes,
Or it
and
could
it makes
hold on.
visual connections.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the symbol. It's one of those things. I keep bringing it up, but the stylized S that everybody would draw in their notebooks in school, it's kind of like that same thing. It has some sort of a
Podcast.
yeah. It has some sort of it's easy to make, and it kind of has a visual puzzle aspect to it, right?
Yep.
So, but the Rotas is really what brings it all home, because it's the sower is the opposite of the wheel, right? The sower has a beginning and has an end. The wheel has no beginning and no end, right? Sower implies reaper. But Rotas is the exact opposite. And so you've got all of these little puzzles in there, meaningful, that is not exactly, because again, it's Latin, right? And we sort of lose the whole perspective on the Latin angle because it's not
Yes. That's a huge problem there too, actually, really.
right, right. But it still holds meaning. Like people can still find meaning in it.
At
And the
this point,
tenant
it's
and
magical probably from us thinking it is, even if it never was.
I think the reason why it stuck with the Christians is the tenant cross, you know, because he's holding the universe in place. It's the four directions, the cardinal points, and it's all held firm. I think Ethan would love this symbol because it's got that polarity of duality right there, and it's the four corners, it's the four sections. So it's definitely got a lot of energetic potential in that regard. So yeah, I love the Sator Square. It's a classic. So I had the let me see, share my screen. All right. So I pulled up the Omphalos. I talk about it all the time, but I never get too deep into it. So this is the navel stone, Omphalos. So that's what Omphalos means, is the navel of the world. And what's interesting about the navel of the world is that it's not restricted to just the Greeks. It's not restricted to just the Native Americans. Pretty much every culture on all these different continents has their own idea of the navel of the world, Gaia's navel. Minnesota comes from the word Minigota, and that means the navel of the world, right? So the navel stone, this is the central pillar of everything in that culture. Everything comes back to that. So this stone particularly is the stone that they said was used to imitate Zeus when Kronos was eating his children. So Zeus was hidden away, and this stone was wrapped up in a cloth and given to Kronos. He ate this instead of Zeus, right? And then when he spit it back out, he threw up all of the rest of the Olympians with it. So this was like, the plug for the next generation. And then once it came loose, then all the Olympians came out. Different ways of thinking came out from Kronos, right? So all of the Olympian gods are like the higher order brain functions, and the Titans are more like the lower, the physical aspect of these gods, right? So Kronos represents sort of like the last physical boundary of time. And for us to see him as the end position, as they look at the seven planets, Saturn is on the end. That's the boundary marker, right? So this one particularly stands out to me because what's around it is supposed to be the stylized net, right? So the stylized net was used to retrieve this out of Kronos's belly. And the stylized net around it looks like bees to me. Looks like bees crawling on a beehive, and it looks beehive shaped, right? And the beehive shape, I think, is very significant, especially in Delphi, because the priestesses who would attend to Delphi were called Melissae, and they were the, honeybee priestesses, right? So they're kind of giving it away what they think of Delphi and this center point. It's like kind of a hive mind mentality. And so it's certainly not the only Omphalos stone. There's lots of recreations and stuff like this, but you could see there's sort of a bee aspect to these, right? And so the Omphalos stone was, there's a good one. You've got the Orphic snake wrapped around it here. And this one is just more of like a general, concrete pillar. But the idea at Delphi was that this stone is what the gods would breathe through into the Pythia, into the Python priestess, who would then regurgitate these oracles and then have it translated by the priests. So there was something interesting going on here, because Zeus was said to release 2 eagles. And those 2 eagles flew all the way across the world. And when they crossed over, that place was considered the navel of the world, or the center of the world. And that was right at Delphi. So this is indicative that the navel of the world is the center point of the world. And, for Americans today, I think our Omphalos, or our Betelgeuse stone, the thing that represents the middle of our world, being a Christian society, is in Israel. So we don't have a Omphalos or a spiritual center in ourselves anymore. We have to keep going on crusades and these mission trips to this Israel to see all of the spiritual happenings there and revisit and become part of it. But it's not exactly, our spiritual center. It's somebody else's spiritual center. So it's kind of an interesting thing, because they were thinking about the spiritual center in Israel. In fact, they have their own Betelgeuse stone, or their central stone, which they call Jacob's pillow, right? So Jacob was laying on the ground. He had his head on a rock, right? And from this position, he had this dream of the stairway to heaven. And after that, he became known as Israel. So that was their touchstone point, which transformed, this tribe into Israel. And that comes through in the story of Jacob's ladder. Well, that's their Betelgeuse stone. And that's on top of Mount Hermon, which is also interesting if you know the lore. So, this Betelgeuse stone idea is where you get a lot of these mounds, right? The mounds are kind of like the navel of the world, and they connect the sky with the earth. They represent that sort of central pillar idea. You've also got the idea that the North Pole is this massive magnetic mountain that exists at the center of the world. And that magnetic mountain is the closest place where you can get to the sky. And what's interesting is we have a radiation belt around the earth. And the only way to get through the radiation belt is through either the North or South poles, because the radiation belt is thinner there and you can actually make it in and out. So it's almost like there is something to this idea of this centrality, this axis point, right? And so the axis that everything else spins around would be kind of summed up in this Omphalos stone, right? So that is my symbol. What do you think of that?
There's a lot more than I ever knew before. It actually got me thinking about that Oracle of the Delphi. We should
So they, what's that?
You should cover that. How many times that thing comes up in like topics and stuff that I've even covered, and I've never really gone into it too much.
Right. Well, there's hypotheses about how it worked. They think that it was volcanic gases coming up, and the Omphalos stone is actually hollow in the middle. So they think that the volcanic gases were going up through the middle of this stone and then seeping out onto the priestess on the tripod. So she's sitting on the tripod, and supposedly these gases are coming up from inside the volcano, and she's receiving these visions from breathing it in. But that's never really been substantiated, you know? So I think there was something else going on. I think it was far more spiritual than it was physical. I don't think they were using a lot of drugs. It was much more, hypnosis based and meditation based. And a lot of people put a lot of stock into the drug use that the Greeks were undergoing, but I think it was for very special occasions. I don't think they were just drugged out all the time. I think it had to be ritually administered, because all of this stuff was magical, right?
Yeah.
And overusing magic was considered to be out of harmony in Greek society. They actually banned black magic in both Greek and Roman society. So, they're telling us that they're full of demons. These are the cultures that ban black magic. So go figure.
That is interesting. Yeah, no.
But outside the Oracle at Delphi, you'll love this part. They had a bag full of beans. And some of these beans were painted white and some of these beans were painted black. So if you wanted your Oracle red and you didn't want to have to wait in line for 2 to 3 months, you would stand there and put your hand into the bag and pull out a bean. And whether it was white or black, you'd get a yes or no answer for your question. So if you wanted to skip the line, you had the beans.
Oh, shit. You know what I came across? I think it was Empedocles and somebody else. They were like, weren't they like against like eating beans?
It was not Paracelsus. What was his name? The guy who came up with the Pythagoras. Pythagoras was against beans because it had this strange number to it, right? Like he was against the number that the beans represented or something. But they did have the magic 8-ball out in front of the Oracle if you didn't want to have to wait forever. So
the magic 8-ball. That's the original magic 8-ball. Holy shit.
Right. Bag of beans. I should go up to people with a bag of beans and be like, have a question in your mind. Now, draw a bean. If it's white, that means yes. If it's black, it means no. You have been visited by the Oracle.
Somebody says, what's the baptism of the dead? I don't know. What the hell is that?
Well, they have the baptism of the dead with the Mormons. The Mormons do that.
That's
so,
right. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't think that. That's when, like Heidi and I think other people have told us, like, you're fucking sitting there like for other people, right? Like even dead motherfuckers, right? Yeah. Oh,
right.
shit.
They would baptize people like Hitler and all these other people.
And they got those golden cattle or something in this fucking bath while they're doing it or some shit. Ritual room.
Yeah. The golden cattle bath is part of the baptism in general, but the baptism of the dead is purely symbolic. So what they would do is, you would go there and you would pray for the dead, and then they would have the symbolic baptism for them. And the idea is you've got to be, sanctifying the dead so that they can get out of hell and, be in the afterlife with you. So I don't know if any other cultures do baptisms for the dead, but I find it really interesting. Ooh, next time we're going to do Bellerophon. It's something that a lot of people know in their subconscious mind, but they have no idea about. So next time.
Are you reading anything or no? Because I do want to at least mention.
I'm going to Gmail. Oh,
you
got a story for me?
I honestly, I'm going to tell you the truth. One, it's like kind of long and a mess, and some of the stuff in there, because I was reading it a little bit as you were going, I was like, I don't know if this is legit or not. It's getting way too like specific on like eye parts, and I'm like, I think you're fucking with me. I'm just to be totally honest, I gotta read this shit before I start reading it. I'm not as risky as you, where you just fucking open up the mail and read it. What I wanted to do though, real quick, is to remind people over this weekend, 25th, I think, 25th, 26th, something like that. This Saturday and Sunday, Arkansas. There's a paranormal event in Little Rock. Check it out. It's in the show notes. It's 2 floors, 2 days. It's going to be packed. I've looked at some of the older years there, and it's packed. There'll be hundreds of people there. There'll be food trucks. There'll be shit outside. There'll be shit inside. Saturday at 2:00. If you want, probably worth the $10 just alone. You can watch a bunch of grown-ups make Bigfoot calls. So you can catch some Bigfoot howls and screeches or whatever the fuck they do for Bigfoot. You can watch that for a minute. And there'll be speakers, and I will have a booth there. I will be doing interviews with people. So check it out. If you're in the area, it's only $10 each day, unfortunately, but there will be like multiple speakers, and I think like more than one room at a time. So definitely come check it out. It is supposedly the biggest paranormal event that's annual every year in Arkansas. So I think there's even other podcasts going to be there and shit too. So check it out if you can.
All right. So I've got a pretty short letter from Samuel Suto, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, do it.
And then I've got a part 2 to the dog man story, if you want to hear that one.
Well, we have 10 minutes, so whichever you can do.
Well, this one's pretty short, so okay. I'll get into my story. At the Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, did the weekend package. Had the pleasure of the corner suite, allegedly where the maid doesn't like unwed. Totally had wild sex, unwed, tab, nothing. Realized that Dumb and Dumber was filmed there. I pointed at the man on the moon pic, unaware I was there. So you remember that scene in Dumb and Dumber where he's like, "We landed on the moon." And it was like 40 years after, that's where he was at. It was the same hotel. He pointed at it too, which is kind of funny. And then it said, "My girl had a seance upon arrival," and that was part 1. So there will be more.
Damn, that was short.
Yeah, very short.
Part 2 should have came with that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a dick, but you could have wrote part 2 in there.
Right, and you should have included your address because I could have just sent that along to Nick and you would have gotten some stickers.
Yeah. DM us or send him another email with part 2. Put your thing in there. I mean, that's even another thing. I mean, listen, I'd rather you send this shit to him. But I mean, you can even DM me if you have to with your address if you're already going to send one stickers or whatever. But I prefer you to send them to Headless because I probably won't check it.
Right. I got so you guys remember Joe Ferguson's story about the dog man?
Yes.
I got a part 2.
All right. Get it.
So it's funny you mentioned curses around the burial mounds. My ex-stepmother and some of her friends years ago apparently went to the mounds and got some things like a vase, a bowl, and some arrowheads. And my aunt's husband was part of the Caddo Indian tribe, so she brought the bowl for him. When he found out where they came from, he told my aunt to give it back to my stepmother and tell her to take it back, but my aunt never did. She said it was left in the house somewhere, maybe in the attic. So it would make sense if there was a curse. Also in the same county is a place called Glimmer, and Glimmer has a road called Cherokee Trace that is where the mounds are at. It was also part of the Trail of Tears where the Native Americans traveled, being kicked off their land. That area has a lot of weird things happen. One thing is that Kelly Wilson case. She was a high school girl who left work one night and was never seen again. The story takes weird turns when some kids that were taken to CPS because of sexual abuse by their family members tell authorities that then chief of police and their family would do satanic rituals and that they killed Kelly Wilson. It was right in the midst of the satanic panic in the 80s and early 90s. So how much was true? Who knows? But it is very interesting. Check the case out and you will see a lot of familiar things that we hear again and again in the conspiracy community. Also, there's a replica of Stonehenge in the woods that you can see the video on YouTube by typing Gilmer, Texas, Stonehenge. So that was the part 2.
Okay.
So it is cursed. Don't take anything from burial mounds. I don't care if it's shiny, if it's pretty. Don't take them.
If you want something you don't like, tell them to take it.
Right. Which is pretty nasty, but you never know if it's going to end up in your car.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah. They put it in their pocket. They're still getting in your car. Fuck.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe that.
But no, people don't know this, but we're actually living on top of an Indian burial ground. It's It's called America. So definitely keep your head on your shoulders out there, people. But this has been another Headless Magical mailbag.
It's awesome.
And definitely visit us next time. I've got a show on Sunday with Ethan and Ricardo called The Trialogues. Last week was lit. We were talking about exile. Why is exile not legal? Why can't we strip people of their citizenship and get them the fuck out of the country? Well, the Supreme Court says that we're not allowed to do that because that's cruel and unusual. But we've got murderers on death row that are about to be killed. And you're telling me exiling them and getting them out of the country is a worse fate than killing them?
Yeah, good point there, sir.
It's strange, but I think there's something to this. Like, they don't want us to be able to exile people, because if we do, the first thing we're going to try and do is exile the elites and strip them of their property. And I think that happened a lot back in the day. So they don't want that to happen again. You know, this is like their insurance policy. No exile, you know? So definitely check that out. And on Monday, we've got another alchemy show coming up. I've got, I'm going to go over what I'm getting for supplies. You guys can join me if you want to go step by step in how to make spagyrics.
Oh, that's awesome.
You may think they're called spagyrics, but they're called spagyrics. And I didn't know that until I had somebody else pronounce it out loud, because, you know, you read all these words in these books and you have no idea how they're pronounced. They're just all over the place. So
I was saying gyro my whole life when it's gyro. I had no fucking idea. Grew up in Long Island. They call it a gyro. Fuck.
Everybody calls it a gyro.
They was calling it a gyro. What the fuck's wrong with them? Holy shit.
Greeks are very apt to, you know, changing their own culture if other people are doing things differently.
Oh, I mean, to say that to Long Island Italians.
Right. They try to blend in.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, too, before you wrap it up, I just remind people in about 5 to 10 minutes, we'll be going live on the Occult Rejects, and you'll be streaming it out on here anyway. So, yeah, we'll be going live with Prometheus Lens covering John Wilkes' killer. John Wilkes Booth's killer. John Wilkes Booth was the killer. Yeah, he was the killer. Yeah. him and like some weird story where, like, there's some weird shit about this guy. Technically, I don't think they ever actually caught him in his bullshit story. Like, the story about everything is very shady, and I think he has other connections that Prometheus is going to talk about. It should be pretty fun.
It's always been a conspiracy. It's always been.
All
right, guys, join us again next time. Yeah, no, it's crazy. The further you dig, the more conspiracies you see. So we'll see you again next time. Later.